Death Race 3 is the third installment of the Death Race remake franchise, you could say. This one is also straight to DVD following the second movie. The first one being the only one directed by Paul W.S. Anderson and being released into theaters. Like I said in the last review, the first and second movies are really, really good. This one, for the most part, the biggest thing that I can say about it is just it feels like a really weaker version of the second movie. It brings back pretty much every character from the second movie, so we're continuing with that situation and plot where it comes to the Terminal Island, which ended in the last movie. We're not dealing with Terminal Island in this one, but we're dealing with the same death race kind of thing. You got Wayland back, which is played by Ving Rhames, and he basically runs death race and is he didn't find it, but he's like the main honcho of death race. And like I said, Danny Trejo's back, Lists is back, Katrina's back. You got every character from the second movie. I just really found that they put a lot more effort into the second movie for some reason. This is also directed by Roel Reiné, that's how you pronounce his name, and it feels the same, just watered down. That's the best way I can describe Death Race 3. We start with Wayland having this conversation with this new guy named Niles York, and Niles York is a British guy who basically comes in. He has this idea to franchise Death Race, and he wants to take over Death Race. So they're having a political war because Niles, I think it's Niles, correct me if I'm wrong, he basically wants to like take the Death Race for himself. Just trying to see if Niles' name is back here, but it's not. Anyways, I think it's Niles York. He wants to take Death Race for himself, and he wants to franchise it globally. He wants to have a Death Race in every exotic location in the world and have a bunch of Frankensteins, because after all, Frankenstein is just a guy in a mask. And he wants to control, what's his name? Played by Luke Goss. Carl Lucas, there you go. I'm really, really good at forgetting names. I remember Goldberg, played by Danny Trejo, and Lists, of course. Who can forget Lists? He's so awesome. But he wants to, possess Frankenstein, Carl Lucas, and Wayland is like, well, if he wins one more race, he's out, and that's the rules. So you can't change the rules, because if you change the rules, you lose your audience, and if you lose your audience, what do you have? What are you going to franchise it for? And he's like, I can have any Frankenstein, because Frankenstein is just a guy in a mask. And he takes over. He basically eliminates the whole 5-race win thing. He keeps it, but he tells Frankenstein that he's gonna purposely lose so that he can stay in the game, and basically threatens his life. He's kind of like the Sean Bean character from the second film, in the same evilness and just fucking everybody over and being selfish as hell and being in it for himself. Death Race 3 also goes to the deserts, which is cool. They could have played it a little better, but they do a lot of cool things with the desert thing, because this moves down to South Africa, and the whole race is in buggies and dirt vehicles and stuff like that. Kind of reminded me of a video game for the PlayStation 2 called Smuggler's Run, if anybody remembers that video game. You basically rode around in a dune buggy in the desert and smuggled shit. But it reminded me of that because of all the sand dunes and vehicles and stuff like that. They threw in a lot of cool concepts with South African villages, and they threw in this element, which I really liked in the middle of the film, of the villages surrounding the Death Race hating Death Race and boycotting Death Race, to the point where they have gangs shooting down cars in Death Race and picketing and stuff like that. There's a really cool scene where there's a missile launched at this car, and the guy gets out of his vehicle, and they all have tracking devices in their bodies. So he's running around this village, basically, and there's this missile going through the streets and stuff like that. Doesn't really make a lot of sense, because the village is so dense and packed with homes and huts and houses and shit. But it's still cool to see a guy run away from a missile, which is completely illogical, but it is what it is. So, Lucas is basically forced into this death race, and he has to lose. He has to play by Niles' way, or You know, if he wins, if he loses, he lives. If he wins, he dies, basically. And that's basically the gist of the film. I really like this one scene where they have this female driver standoff, which they didn't show before in the previous films. They always showed like cage fights and stuff like that, but this one they strictly have like these chicks fighting for their position to drive between drivers, and they're all like beating the shit out of each other, and they get weapons and they're able to use weapons on each other. Of course Katrina wins, and of course Katrina gets to ride with Carl again. And it's funny that the movie starts where nobody knows that Carl is Frankenstein, because everybody still assumes that he died in the last film, and it wasn't announced to Katrina or Goldberg or Lists that Carl was ever alive. So this guy in the Frankenstein suit, they never knew it was Carl. They thought it was a different guy in the Frankenstein persona. And there's a lot of random prison fights, except the prison is now in like caves, so they kind of switch the atmosphere with a lot of things, including the prisons. And there's a lot of random prison fights that start out of nowhere. And when Carl's is revealed, it's really cheesy. The Katrina is like, "You son of a bitch," and Goldberg is all pissed off because he feels like they were family, and he could have told him, and the secret would have been kept between them. But Carl's like, "If I told you, you would be in tremendous danger. Like, I was only protecting you guys. I didn't want to, come forward with something massive like that." And there's really cheesy dialogue, and this is definitely the cheesiest of the death races that I've seen so far. And just cheesy situations and funny scenes though. It's still fun. It still holds that fun factor, and there's a lot of funny moments. They introduce the first female driver, which is this woman named Olga. Whew. I think she's the most beautiful girl in the film, easily. She's so hot as soon as she showed up. She's this blonde. She has this like bubbly, cute face, and she doesn't look like she'd be driving in like a badass vehicle, but she's a badass girl. Just doesn't look the part, but she certainly acts the part. There's this really cool scene where this huge dune buggy, or dune truck, whatever you want to call it, hops a dune and lands kind of forward, and then basically acts like it hits a wall when it hits the sand, and the front tires makes it stop so abruptly that it seems like the driver would be, flying out the window pretty much, because the car takes such a huge stop and huge haul basically. But and then they do it in slow-mo. It's really cool. One scene, a buggy flies off a cliff, and I wonder how they did this too, because I'm guessing they use stunt people, but the cliff's huge, and you have these people falling out of the car and just like falling into the water, which maybe they stretched it out to make it look higher than it was, but this thing looked 200 feet. Like, it didn't look like anything anybody could jump off and land in the water and survive. It just didn't look like it. So I do wonder how they pulled that cinema magic off, or if they used stunt people, or if it was all green screen. I don't know how they did it, but it looked really real and really convincing. So I enjoyed that part really well, or a lot, I should say. In the last movie, because Frankenstein won the race, he got a gift, which is Katrina, a woman that he could sleep with. In this one, I believe it's Razor that wins, but they give Carl a woman. I didn't get that. It didn't make any sense why he would get the prize when he lost. He was second place. Katrina gets all pissed because they gave her a different woman other than Katrina, and then there's this whole heart-warming scene where she's like, "Did you sleep with him?" And they're like on opposite sides of a fence, like a cage basically. And he's like, "No." And you know why, don't you? And it's this really like cheesy B-movie moment. It was really funny. I enjoyed that. The scene where Goldberg gets stabbed in one scene, and then he has to go recover from a nurse. And she ends up performing oral sex on him, and that's really funny the way it plays out because Lists is outside panicking and listing off all these stats and about all kinds of famous people getting stabbed and who survived and who didn't, and the dates when it happened and all this stuff, and he's just going on like anxious, paranoid, walking back and forth, worrying about Goldberg, and I really found that funny because it fit his character so well. And then he runs into the nurse's room and she's blowing the guy. It was really funny. As for the twist at the end, it's a really cool twist, I must say. Just wondering if I should mention anything else before the twist, because the twist is basically the biggest thing of the movie that makes you like, whoa, that's cool. Although the twist doesn't make much logical sense, it's a pretty convenient one, but spoiler, like obviously this is a spoiler review, as I hope everybody knows by now. There's one quote that after the second round, I think the announcer's like, unauthorized use is punishable by death unless you're 15 years older. It's life in prison. So you get the life, or you get the death penalty if you if you broadcast this illegally. But if you're under 15, you get life in prison. So that's just a little better. That's I laughed at that, like how crazy that was. Really funny. I liked Katrina, not Katrina. Is her name Katrina? The host, the South African host of the show. She's really cool, and her name is not Katrina because Katrina rides with Carl. What is her name? Regardless, she's the host that works with Niles before the twist. But anyways, I found it really cool that it ends up Carl made a deal with Wayland to, well, assassinate Niles, but he went a step further by working with 14K. I love 14K because it's funny to watch him in this movie and think that he played Luke Kane in Mortal Kombat, because they look so different and they're totally different characters. And 14K helped him set off this plan, and Wayland had somebody on the inside, which was the nurse that was healing up Goldberg, and Goldberg had that moment where he faked his death with the missile. And I love the plan that Carl had to go infiltrate, or win the race, I should say, and then infiltrate the headquarters where everybody's broadcasting the death race, where Niles is, and that woman, the host, that I think her name is, I think it's Katarina or something like that. Definitely not Katrina, because there's not two Katrinas in this film. And she was inside it, and she chains Niles up to the desk, and he starts flipping out, and then they come in with the car, eject their seats, so they like slide on the floor. It's totally ridiculous. And they blow up the whole place, and have Niles burnt to death, and basically frame him as the next Frankenstein. Has his face all burnt. The nurse ejects one of those tracking devices or ID, implants on the neck, so it's confirmed that he's Frankenstein. And they basically fuck him over royally. And I really liked that aspect to it, even though the whole execution was ridiculous and really over the top. It was still cool to think about, and it was still a great B-movie moment and a great B-movie twist that I could say I enjoyed. And then Wayland's like, for the last time, I am not Frankenstein. And he's so distraught and so pissed, and like, because he knows his life is over. And I guess so far this is what leads up to the first film, from 2 to 3 to 1 following this, because these are prequels. And so far that seems like what's going to happen, because at the end of this film they also show the new crew for Frankenstein, which is the same guy, the preacher guy, I think, from the first film with Jason Statham. And yeah, I thought that twist was awesome. And then I loved how they went all Fast and Furious style, where they're at the beach relaxing with champagne, and they're like, cheers to family and stuff like that. And yeah, it is what it is. It's just I wish it was as heart pumping and had more to offer like the second movie did. I just think it didn't surpass it didn't go bigger than the second film did, sorry. Which sequels should, especially even straight to DVD. Like a sequel that's following something should try to go bigger in some way. And this one just kind of stayed mediocre and didn't do things as powerfully as the second film did. But the twist was really good. There was not really a big twist in the. There was, but it wasn't as big as this one. So at least they enhanced the twist, if anything. But that's all I got to say about Death Race 3. It was fine. It was fine. It's a fine sequel, and it keeps the remake franchise going, and directed by the same director. So, and you got a lot of desert races. If you like the desert stuff, it's a cool film. And can't say anything else about it. That's about it. So, subscribe to Morgan Film Fan if you like to listen to my voice, or if you like my film reviews. I'll be back with more very soon. Check out what I have on the channel if you're interested. And until next one, have a good one, take care, and cheers.